Vou dar início ao webinar, dando palavra ao delegado da AICEP na Alemanha, Rui Boa Vista Marques, que fará uma apresentação de cerca de 10, 15 minutos, e depois entrará em cena o Olaf Holzköfer, que é o diretor de internacionalização da BME, que é a Associação de Compradores Alemães. E não tendo mais nenhuma consideração a fazer, vou dar a palavra ao Rui Boa Vista Marques. Rui, pode começar. Obrigado.
Bom dia a todos. Só queria ver se a minha imagem já está projetada, já está
perfeito,
partilhada.
está perfeito.
Ótimo. Em primeiro lugar, eu queria agradecer à AIMMAP este convite. Aliás, mais do que um convite, é um reconhecimento de uma parceria muito forte, ideal, que nós temos entre a AICEP e a AIMMAP e, portanto, mais uma vez, perspectivando também eventos próximos que vamos ter, queria agradecer à AIMMAP o convite para participar neste evento. Eu cheguei há pouco tempo à Alemanha, cheguei em setembro, estou cá há pouco mais de um mês e meio, mas de facto já estive na Alemanha no princípio do século, entre 2000 e 2006, e portanto tenho aqui um conhecimento acumulado, mas que enfim, agora vou ter de recuperar outra vez, e é isso que estamos a fazer, e gostava de vos dar uma pequena introdução à situação atual da relação bilateral entre Portugal e a Alemanha e alguns pontos que achamos que podemos vir a trabalhar de uma maneira mais eficaz. Queria-vos apresentar assim muito rapidamente, são uns 10 minutos, um primeiro olhar sobre a economia, o que é que se está a passar, quais são as perspectivas de mudança, queria-vos falar um bocadinho sobre este termo Zweitenwende, e a campanha que estamos aqui a conduzir na Alemanha, em parceria com a AIMMAP, que é o Portugal Makes Sense, e depois enfim algumas recomendações que é para nos dar aqui alguns tópicos de conversa. Não temos a registar que, se virem, houve aqui um decréscimo das exportações, pelas razões que sabemos, em 2020. Esta é a evolução da balança comercial Portugal-Alemanha no geral. Mas vemos que há aqui um crescimento este ano, em 2022, mais de 25%, há uma retoma forte. E queria-vos só explicar um bocadinho que esta retoma forte é mais forte para a Alemanha do que, por exemplo, para a Espanha e para a França. Quer dizer que a interação, a maneira como os agentes económicos estão a reagir, mesmo na situação de crise, enfim, arrastada pelo fim da pandemia, agora pela crise energética e com os outros aspectos vamos falar um bocadinho, a retoma do aumento das exportações para a Alemanha está a ser mais forte do que para a França e a Espanha, por exemplo. E já vamos ver um bocadinho porquê. Estas são as exportações da fileira da metalomecânica, veem que as exportações continuam muito fortes, vemos aqui o coeficiente de cobertura a começar a crescer, já estamos perto dos 80%, acho que até ao final do ano vamos subir, mas de facto há aqui um aumento também das exportações portuguesas para a Alemanha neste setor. O que gostaria de dizer um bocadinho a Alemanha tem sido o terceiro mercado, há aqui uma aproximação do segundo mercado, que é a França, de modo que, como sabem, durante algum tempo a Alemanha foi o segundo mercado, há aqui este posicionamento um bocadinho semelhante entre a França e a Alemanha, mas há aspectos de retoma que são muito interessantes. E se virmos um bocadinho de uma maneira mais alargada, vemos que a Alemanha é o principal cliente de Portugal, por exemplo, em equipamento elétrico, nos moldes também. Há vários setores que têm a Alemanha como o principal mercado e depois há vários setores que têm a Alemanha como o segundo ou o terceiro mercado. E, portanto, a importância relativa da Alemanha para Portugal e também aqui de Portugal como mercado de exportação de produtos alemães aqui na parte direita do gráfico. Mas só para enquadrar um bocadinho a importância relativa que nós temos nesta relação bilateral e agora um bocadinho já um olhar aqui da Alemanha. Como é como é que está a correr o sentimento económico e, infelizmente, enfim, vocês sabem disso, mas vou-vos apresentar uma confirmação de que a situação económica está a deteriorar e muito. Estão a ver este índice do IFO, que é este Instituto Alemão da Perspectiva do Clima Económico, que está muito a crescer e, portanto, a vir para terreno negativo. E isto é válido para, se virem estas 4 declinações, indústria, serviço, comércio e construção, vejam a tendência de todos estes gráficos, que é de declínio, de degradação do sentimento económico. E, portanto, temos tempos difíceis que temos difíceis pela frente, e isto é importante terem conhecimento, porque quando falarem com os agentes económicos alemães, é esta a perspectiva económica que eles vos vão transmitir. Aqui também um outro elemento económico, que é o índice de compras na indústria, e também desde ali 2021 durante todo o 22, todo este ano, em decréscimo acentuado. E, portanto, é esta a circunstância económica que temos, e é sobre ela que vamos falar um bocadinho, sobre o que é que de facto está a passar aqui na Alemanha. Enfim, estes são os grandes títulos, cabeça de cartaz da análise económica, mas nós sabemos o que está a acontecer. Sabemos que houve ruptura das cadeias de abastecimento durante a pandemia, sabemos que há uma enorme crise energética com um percurso que ainda não sabemos exatamente para onde é que vai, de que maneira é que vamos conseguir ultrapassá-la e arranjar soluções, e sabemos que há novos temas em cima da mesa, a automação, enfim, fala-se muito de hidrogênio, há soluções para o hidrogênio, não, a indústria de componentes já está incluída na cadeia de valor, há aqui uma série de temas, indústria 4.4, a própria economia circular e a robótica, enfim, só para vos situar um bocadinho nas preocupações que nós temos e a maneira como vamos ter de lidar com elas, e esta expressão que quem vem à Alemanha vai ouvir muita vez. Durante a integração das duas Alemanhas houve uma expressão que era de venda, que era a grande alteração. Esta é que se vai também, é a mudança dos tempos. E os tempos de mudança é uma expressão nova, que foi cunhada pelo atual chanceler, e, portanto, vamos ouvi-la e temos de analisar com detalhe. O que é que temos estado a fazer na Alemanha? Em parceria com a AIMMAP e outros players, sabem que tem havido muitas feiras, enfim, temos um momento muito particular durante a Hannover Messe deste ano, com os países parceiros, mas há outras feiras em que estamos muito interessados em declinar também, em conseguir apresentar enfim, o Portugal inovador, o Portugal consistente, a indústria presente, porque nós somos conhecidos aqui na Alemanha. Porque há um tipo, só para dar um exemplo, tivemos a indústria ferroviária aqui na Inotrans, em Berlim, logo no princípio, em meados de setembro, e tentámos fazer um bocadinho esta continuação desta campanha que começou em Hannover 22, que foi o Portugal Makes Sense, através de uma campanha mais afirmativa em que Portugal diz que tem soluções, que tem produtores de componentes para fazer parte desta mudança que está a ocorrer também a nível energético, mas sobretudo a nível industrial, e está a correr muitíssimo bem. Temos melhor reconhecimento de imagem, digamos, depois desta Hannover 22, e sobretudo agora estamos muito preocupados, enfim, em rentabilizar e em melhorar ainda estes aspectos de imagem que temos pela frente. E depois também só referir um bocadinho o que é que nós fazemos aqui na AICEP Alemanha, através, enfim, deste marketing intelligence. Temos dezenas, uma centena e pouco de empresas deste setor que nos contactam regularmente. Quer saber aspectos particulares da indústria, quer saber algumas alterações de pessoal que houve nas empresas, e, portanto, nós providenciamos muitos serviços de consultoria, de marketing intelligence às empresas, como vocês sabem. E, enfim, algumas recomendações, mas que são um bocadinho aquelas coisas que nós dizemos sempre. Quando olham para a Alemanha, por favor, tenham algumas preocupações acrescidas. É evidente que sabemos que nem todas as empresas têm recursos humanos a falar alemão, mas se for possível, por favor, tentem incluir pessoas que falam alemão, tentem reforçar as vossas equipas e, enfim, depois fazer sempre aquele trabalho de contratação, de contactos regulares e eficazes com o mercado. Mas temos muitas empresas que também vêm à Alemanha, mas que não vêm necessariamente só à Alemanha, porque as feiras são plataforma e, portanto, vêm contactar clientes escandinavos, clientes da Alemanha de Leste, mas, enfim, estando aqui em Berlim, queria sempre chamar a atenção sobre a necessidade de focarmos na Alemanha, porque quanto mais cotas de mercado e melhores contactos temos aqui, acho que mais conseguimos afirmar os nossos setores. E depois, enfim, aquilo que nós aqui na equipa, nós somos 5, sou eu mais 4 técnicos especialistas de mercado. Aquilo que tentamos fazer é dividir um bocadinho, ajudar a ver novas empresas a chegar ao mercado e depois ajudar empresas que já têm contactos no mercado, alguma cota de mercado, ajudar a reforçar. É um bocadinho isto que nós fazemos aqui. Gostava depois, mais tarde, de apresentar, e se vier ao mercado, com certeza, a especialista que acompanha este mercado, que é a Mariana Gomes, e, portanto, são duas caras aqui na equipa que têm de conhecer, e, portanto, era um bocadinho esta a introdução que eu gostava de fazer antes de passar a palavra para, and now I'll do it in English, to introduce Olaf. Who else to introduce to us what's happening in Germany and how can the Portuguese companies count on your knowledge sharing to see how can they progress in the market with all the changes that are happening now. Please, Olaf, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rui, for this presentation. I rather see that there are some charts that are mainly the same, but I will make a little bit more to the procurement. And thank you also to AIMMAP for inviting me, and also for the long cooperation we have with AIMMAP and ICEP in this regard. So my name is Olaf Holzgräfe. I'm heading the international department of the BME, the Association Supply Chain Management, Procurement and Logistics in Germany. I will give you a little bit of rough overview. A rough overview about the BME, that you know who we are and what are our targets and main focus. I will talk about maybe roughly the same slide Rio present regarding the challenges we have, but I will more focused on the opportunities inside of these challenges for the Portuguese companies. I will also highlight a little bit the Purchasing Manager Index, but I will share some more slides to give you an overview in which situation the companies are in the current situation, and then talk about the transformation and supply chain due diligence, because this is something you have to know, because there's something big happening at the 1st January 2023. So if I talk about the BME, we are one of the largest associations in Europe and the largest in the European Union. We're covering more than roughly 10,000 members with a purchasing volume of around about 1,250 billion euro. This is mainly half of the German GDP. With our companies, we are mainly acting in the manufacturing and production areas, also in the area of this kind of logistics. We have more than 200,000 visitors in our and participants in our activities. In 2019, 900 events. We roughly have some more in the last 2 years, but it's hardly to count in times of COVID. How you count a webinar and an event. We are happy that we've been live this year, and I was very happy that AIMMAP and ICEP participating in the BME symposium in Berlin, and I think it is a good opportunity to highlight the opportunities of Portugal in that way. And thank you also to you making a presentation to the public, talking about the potential of Portugal. What are we doing? Just roughly, we are in the area of qualifications, so we qualify people in the area of procurement and supply chain management. roughly 100,000 people in the last 15 years. We make in-house trainings for small and medium-sized enterprises and also for big corporates. We certify procurers. We are also
Não basta a fotografia, tem que ser vídeo também.
we are also acting in an international context with our services and are part of IFPSM as well as Portuguese Procurement Association as well. So I know them very well and just meet them in a global summit last week. We have a good time and shared a lot of experiences. So I think that the connections between Portugal and Germany are quite good, but there is still way to improve. We're doing the Purchasing Manager Index in cooperation with S&P Global, have expert councils, having young professionals, and we are, of course, organized regional because we are a federal association, and Germany is very federal as well. But you can have this information afterwards because I will share it with AIMMAP and ICEP. If we talk about procurement and the opportunities in for Portuguese companies, or I have to not only to say to Portuguese companies, what opportunities we have in Europe, I formally want to say that if not now, when to see the strengths and benefit of the EU, which we have right now. The EU gives us a lot of opportunity. Of course, it's not easy to handle within all the member states, but if we now look back to the last 2 years and the challenges coming up to us, I think everybody see how beneficial the EU is for not only for us in Germany, but also for all the other EU member states, and it's gives us stability and maybe gives us the opportunity to face the challenges of the future. And as you see that the extra EU in Germany imports is rather slower than from the inside EU 27. In Germany, you have a lot of discussions about the opportunities and the things we get from China, but China is rather not so big. We get more stuff in production materials out of Eastern Europe, for example, than we get out of China. Also, we have to, and this also you see in the right hand, what you can mention here, that the rest of the world. So Germany, main supplying country is Germany themselves, if you called to value-added things. Then you see Spain, Swiss, Austria, Poland, and of course you see China and the United States. And roughly 45 to 65% of a turnover related to procurement. So there is a huge potential. And as you mentioned, there are not only one challenge for the procurers and the German company right now, there are a lot of challenges. And especially I have to highlight, of course, energy, because this is a slide I rather take since 2 years, but the size and the colors of the challenges change a little bit. Currently, it's energy. As you know, the energy prices and energy supply situation in Germany is rather challenging, I will say. The energy prices go up on a level we never expect to have this level, which brings the companies rather under pressure. And if you combine this with the slide I presented before, that 78% of the value-added percent, or the 78% of the value-added import or supply is made in Germany. So you see, if the energy prices go up in Germany, this have a deeply impact on our competitiveness in the global market, because it rises our prices or make even our margins very smaller or negative. So the German small and medium-sized enterprises and companies have a really huge challenge, and you see that they combine it now with a transformation also in the area of climate. Because of course, if you reduce CO2 emissions, you try to reduce your production, especially in gas, and to have a cost cutting effect on this. So the companies are really now looking into their supply chains more, also how they can maybe can be more independent by the energy gas to be more sustainable and competitive in the future. while managing this price thing, we still have the Ukraine war. And why is this important for a supply chain manager? Now, of course, we have the war and we have a Russian aggression over there, but we make a survey beginning of the year in February, when we ask our companies, how deep is your impact to Russia and Ukraine? And the answer were pretty low, because most of the companies say, we have no direct supplier in Ukraine and Russia. So this will be a challenge, but not too huge to us. Then the war come, Russia starting the invasion, and suddenly we see that in the second, third tier, we are related to Russia and Ukraine much more deeper than we expect. Especially raw materials, non-metal material, raw materials, and all these things are very, very important for German, so for the German supply chain. And this leads to the thing that it's a supply chain issue. Have one more argument to go deeper and make them more transparent. So it's not only in the supply chain issue that if you don't have containers, the supply prices from China are still high. So you also want to have the transparency inside of the supply chain, because you want to know where your supplier and the supplier of your supplier get his stuff from, to be more risk oriented and can install a risk management. Talking about that, we just recognize that there is still a trade war going on between China and US. And this is, and then you see, this is a rather old presentation from last week. I made this because normally I have to make this trade war China-US a little bit bigger right now, because as you mentioned, President Biden made a decision last week that's forbidden for US citizens to support and to work for Chinese company in the chip industry. This will have also maybe a reaction by the Chinese side. And so we have to have another big eye on this supply chain issue in the chips as well. They are challenging anyway, but as you know, we have also the Taiwan conflict. So, and this, we are reliable, or we are really dependent on the chip supply from Taiwan. So, but still, we have electromobility, sustainability, we still have COVID challenges, and we have the future trends, because also COVID changes the markets heavily in the way of working, the way of acting, the way of producing, and the way of consumers acting. So the biggest winner are the online, on the consumer side, are the online portals like Amazon, because the people now are more familiar with online buying than before. Also inside of companies, there was a huge change in having mobile working opportunities, offline conferences like we do today. And why that we're talking about, we have, or why managing these trends, we have also to manage the challenges in the electromobility and sustainability. And this also leads to a big advantage for Portugal, because you are close to Germany, have short supply chains, you are transparent, able to speak German, and you are price competitive, while managing also a lot of innovation. Highlight that to your potential German customers, because currently it's a huge benefit. What's going on right now is a diversification and a local for local trend, which will be continue in the next couple of years, because the companies in Germany, in Portugal, in Europe, try to shorten their supply chains and put more of suppliers, maybe second or third source suppliers. They want to have options in the markets where they are, and they want to be more independent from maybe markets where they right now have a huge dependence. And electromobility also leads there to that companies have to reorganize their supply chain anyway. They need less suppliers, but they need better suppliers and more innovative suppliers. And this is also a big benefit for Portugal, because in my trips, I've been to Portugal, and due to the long relations, you have more potential to show to the German company than most of the company do actually right now. Rio present also the situation in the German industry. I don't want to highlight that because Rio mentioned the Purchasing Manager Index right now. So we see a deep, we have a deep challenge, and with some people talking about the danger of a recession in Germany, as you see in this S&P Global BME Market Purchasing Manager Index. You see also that this challenge may be not coming out of the consumer goods, it's the intermediate goods, which bring the pressure. And you see that the European zone with a 49.8, which means everything below 50 is not good because it's a shrinking economy. Germany, as you see before, is a little bit lower than the European average. But you see also that Great Britain, United States, Canada, Brazil, and even also China are performing a little bit better than we are. The winner of the situation currently are Asia and India. But also, what makes me a little bit sad is that the situation is in Russia is better than you think after 8 months of sanctions. The prices going down, you see, but also the orders going down on a very, very low level. We never have such a low level with a new order index of 40.9. This is really heavily. What's a good situation, but it's also a bad news, is that the supplier delivery times index go up, which means that the supplier or the delivery times become shorter. Whenever you have a crisis and you have a supply chain issue, you have long delivery times. So in the side of supply chains, due to logistic and delivery, we become to a situation, let's say, back to normal. But the new orders, the prices, the input and output prices are really on a high level. And this, as we go back to the presentation I done, we have this inflation challenges also in Germany by roughly about 10%. What means is now, what counts now for German procurement and supply chain managers? They invest in digitalization right now. So if you are a digital company in Portugal and show your possibility to be digital as well, processes in procurement and supply chain will now heavily be digitalized. And also there, Germany has a way to go. We are not the best performing, let's say, country in the digitalization, as you know. And the main thing in these processes is not only order and billing processes, and not only the internal processes, also the digitalization of risk management. COVID and the crisis right now, as I mentioned, the survey to Ukraine leads to the situation that companies, even small and medium-sized companies, put more an eye on the risk management to really know how is the situation in my supply chain, not at only my direct supplier, also in the entire supply chain, tier 1, 2, or 3. This not only leads to the logistic transparency, as you mentioned, that there was a ship like the given was stocked in the Suez Channel. It was definitely also an advantage to know where my container is located on the ship, not only knowing when the ship is going, because definitely with 20,000 containers, it is a difference between sometimes a week if you know where my container reaches. Also, the situation in China, in Asia, and all over Europe as well, you want to know how is, for example, this stock situation at my compliers. Did I have a risk? Because the main challenge currently and in the last couple of months is the ability to supply myself to my customers and be able to produce. Logistic in the supply chain as well, and local for local are already mentioned. And it also means that it's not only risk management, you want to have a transparent supply chain. And as more transparent you are as a supplier from Portugal to a German company, as more the German company is interested in working to you together, because then you get a partner where he can rely on, because if you can also provide him transparency to your processes, to your situation, to your production. ensuring the ability to deliver in all kinds of commodities. There we have a little bit kind of change. We have in the beginning of the year, we have nearly everywhere problems inside of the commodities and raw materials. Currently now it becomes a little bit more better, but also we still have huge challenges in raw materials, plastic, and some commodities in the metal sector. But nevertheless, the current problems have to be managed right now. In the same time, we have to manage the challenges of the future, which were coming up. The question of sustainability, or the target of sustainability in Europe, we're talking about Green Deal. In Germany, we're talking about Nachhaltigkeit, is not only internal question, it's also a market question. So be sustainable is also an argument, a marketing argument for the future. As more the supply chain can manage the sustainability aspects as well, as better it is for a German company. So think about sustainability, but also think about supply chain due diligence. I will come up to this issue at the end of my presentation, because there will be a law in Germany valid from the 1st January or January 1st, 2023, which is related to nearly, but not to nearly, to every company all over the world, and to drive innovation. But this is, I think, what not changing right now. This was also mentioned in our meeting in Berlin, where also AIMMAP was present, and we're talking about efficiency and all the stuff like this. And we see how huge the challenges are. But I think the German Mittelstand and the German companies will manage the future. It will be a tough time, especially due to the huge energy prices and energy crisis. But also this is a thing we now try to serve. And a lot of small and medium-sized companies invest and structure heavily to be more independent by energy supply. Supply chain I mentioned, and I will go more for the presentation like this, because this is for you as a supplier, and this is a presentation is also very important for our buyers, is now the main change in the game in procurement. The old thing in Germany or in procurement was that you have to manage price, quality, and reliability. And wherever, if you are more reliable, more qualified, you can also reach a higher price. But this is old style. New or current is that a buyer have to manage efficiency, sustainability, and resilience. If you show efficiency, resilience, and sustainability to your potential customer in Germany, and go in this argumentation, including price and quality, you are definitely in a better position than everybody else. Of course, this is to hit the blue spot in the middle. It's not easy for a procurer, because as you see, just in time or stock or reduced stock, whenever you do in another area something, it reflects to something. You reduce stocks, you are more sustainability. If you are just in time, you are more efficient. But if you are just in time and you reduce stock, maybe you are not as resilient as your company. And there you see it in Germany, a lot of companies rise their stock, now invest money in stocks because they want to be resilient for supply chain interruptions. And this leads to diversification, to other capacities, also to the discussion, make things by themselves or bring back production capacities to Germany, to their own company, or to the facilities in Europe. But also talking about circular economies, how we can do this. And this also leads that we heavily also highlight in Germany that all these companies cannot do this everything by themselves. We need industry, intelligent and more state-of-the-art industry politics. We need a state-of-the-art climate politics. We need a certain form of supply chain regulation, and we need free trade, because free trade helps us to get stable in the future. Coming to the supply chain due diligence, I want to only to highlight one thing, and if there are questions, you can come up to me or to AIMMAP. We can serve you with more information. What will be valid in future? Most of you, which are supplying to the big German brands like Bosch or Gramma, Siemens, which are located in Portugal, already know this challenge. There will be a law valid from the January 1st, 2023 for companies with more than 3,000 employees worldwide, not only in Germany, worldwide, that they are responsible for their first-tier suppliers. All first-tier suppliers. It doesn't matter how big they are. They have to be transparent in area of sustainable questions, social questions, compliance questions, and all the other things in due diligence, which leads to the situation that a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises, not only in Portugal, all over the world, have to supply information to their customers to follow that they are following and compliant to this law. Why is this so important? If a German company is not compliant to this law because it don't make this supply chain due diligence regarding to that law, it can be bring to law in Germany by everybody, and this is also a financial risk. So therefore, it's a huge pressure to especially small and medium-sized enterprises to install a supply chain due diligence system to follow this law. Be prepared for this as a Portuguese company, because you are anyway more compliant to social, sustainable, and also to compliance questions than maybe some other countries in Europe and outside of Europe, as you can ask, proactive answer these questions. Positive, it's definitely a competitive advantage for not only Portuguese companies, but also for Portuguese companies to these German customers and to the German market. By the way, beside of Norway, Germany, and France, there are some civil society actions in place in Spain and in Italy. In Italy, it's more related to corruption issues. But then you see there's nothing much in place, and there's still a political process. But I want to highlight that there is also a political process going on in Brussels, because if there are discussions to have this supply chain due diligence law on a European level installed in future as well, and the current situation in Brussels is that that the German or the European companies are not, by the way, European means also you in Portugal, not only related to the first tier, your direct suppliers, you are responsible for social issues, so sustainable issues in your second and third tier suppliers as well. And you need transparent information out of your supply chain. This is not only a challenge for Portuguese company, this is also a challenge by the current situation in Germany for German companies as well, because it needs a huge collection of information, by the way, valid and reliable information, and this have to be managed. And we rise it to the German government that is a huge challenge, especially in time of the crisis. So whenever you want to be prepared for the German markets, go for this supply chain due diligence. Ask, for example, AIMMAP, the German chamber, or us, or maybe your potential customer. What are the requirements you have to fulfill? Be prepared and use this preparation as a marketing instrument, because this definitely is a competitive advantage if you can say to your customer, I know everything, I'm prepared for it, I'm ready to go, and I will be your partner, because with my company, you will have not big issues with this supply chain due diligence law. By the way, in future, in 2024, this law will also be valid to companies with 1,000+ employees. So the typical German Mittelstand, so nearly all importing and exporting production companies are linked to this law. This is a very important development, and if you don't have it on mind, please take it on mind, because to say it very clear, a supplier in Europe, elsewhere on the global planet, is let's say compliant to this law from the January 1st, will be out of the game, because to integrate a non-compliant company inside of the first-tier supply chain will lead to a risk in the area of getting to court. So it's a judicative risk you have as a German company. So bringing it together, we need, the German companies want to have sustainable procurement organization, prepare answer for that, because it's not only the sustainability in the procurement processes, it's also related. We need to have more sustainable products in the future, because we only have one planet. We need to have digital supply chains and risk management, which leads also to the need that be prepared for digital questions and to a transparent risk management and drive innovation and have transparent markets. We do this for a long time. I will do this very short, because we as a BME support not only in Portugal, but also in Portugal, the connections between buyers and suppliers with the chamber, with AIMMAP, with ICEP since 2009, and we do it very successfully. We're doing big initiatives in Germany, not only with the chamber, and we have an open marketplace. By the way, there's also, if you have a procurement, the opportunity to certify yourself in the area of a sustainable procurement process, or get a sustainable procurement certification. And if you have a procurement organization in your company which is ready for innovation, all the things are starting with their own benchmark, that you can see where are my weak spots in the area of sustainability or innovation inside of my procurement. And from January 1st on, or end of November, our online B2B platform is much more modern, because you can register for free. And if we have B2B activities, you can easily link to yourself to the B2B activities in your country, which make it much more easier to participate in our B2B activities in Europe, in Portugal, or elsewhere. This is what I want to mention. And now I think we have time for discussions and questions out of the audience. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, and having now time to discuss it a little bit.
Thank you, Olaf. It was a brilliant presentation, and I'm sure now companies are aware of some difficulties that can come up in the beginning of next year. And
no
talking about that, tell me something.
Difficult is not the right question.
Process,
we have all challenges.
This process of due diligence is done by what? Some kind of certification. The companies can hire a consulting company to do the job. Can you tell us how a company can overcome that process?
This is a really good question, because at end of, by the way, January 1st, the due diligence, the law becomes valid in Germany. End of September, and there will be a state-owned institution called BAFA. It's a Ministry for Export Control, which is responsible for control this law. End of September, we know that there will now be 60 persons in place somewhere in Germany, and there will be a questionnaire available, which is now available since a couple of days. So the situation, the question we have to answer, and the way that it will be controlled is still in process by the German government. This is a challenge for the German companies, but a lot of companies still send out the questionnaire, because we know which kind of items will be covered. Social issue, gender issues, compliance issues, transparency issues. The thing that the target is, and I think it's a good target, to make the supply chains also comparable and bring more social standards inside of the supply chain. But also it automatically leads to a situation that a lot of companies on the buy side and supply side now have to do additional work to be transparent. And the challenge was that I was at a meeting end of September, and we don't know how the concrete questionnaire by the German government will be. It's now on the state, we know it already, and there will be how to become compliant is to get information about this thing. A lot of chambers now inform it, and I think also AIMMAP has basic information about the basic requirements on this. But then it is the main thing is get information into your own company in Portugal. Take care about these actions. If you have questions, it's by the way not bad, because a lot of German companies have questions as well. But if you are aware of these questions, your company knows, okay, there is a company going ahead by thinking, want to be prepared in that way. And I think there will be a process in the beginning of the next year between also the mid-sized companies in Germany and the government and their suppliers all around the world. By the way, you see that the huge corporations like Siemens or Bosch, they will have any kind of problems because they have a very heavy due diligence system in place anyway since a lot of years, due to their huge size, due to their huge risks inside of this due diligence stuff. But for the small and medium-sized enterprise, it's tough. And if you imagine what could happen if the European law will be in place in maybe in the near future, that you are responsible as a small and medium-sized enterprise for the entire supply chain, so tier 1, 2, and 3, for example, then you have to ask for information by the supplier of your supplier. And what's about if this supplier is not a small one? It's maybe a big one because it's a chemical company or whatever. So there will be a huge challenge, but this is a thing of process. So the thing is, get to know, be a little bit prepared. You know that you have to provide social, so payment and other information about this thing. And there is anyway a good on our BME website, BME opensourcing.com, there is a description about this supply chain due diligence as well. So the main issues are mentioned there. You get it also on the German government side, so that you have the real thing. Then can you ask yourself and come back with questions. So it's still in the process. Ui.
Olaf, we have a common interest subject, so we'll have many talks here in Berlin, because I was doing 2 years, I was in Brussels working at the Portuguese representation to the European Union when these 2 directives were designed. The IPI, the International Procurement Initiative. The procurement initiative is designed to try to stop unfair procurement practices, for example, from China. When the Chinese company tries to sell train wagons or try to build a bridge in Europe, it's for large-scale processes. But the due diligence directive is also targeting, for example, cases like linen or wool, or where is it coming from? It's from Sichuan in China, and therefore this producer of wool or linen that is selling to a Portuguese textile producer can produce or not this certificate. And I guess that many will not be able. So it's more these 2 tools that are being designed in Brussels are trying to stop unfair practices from foreign players. Yeah, but of course the implementation is still to be completely designed, and therefore when it goes down to national authorities, there is still a huge process to design it or on how to implement it. But it's so important that you mentioned that, really, and I think AIMMAP and AIMMAP will, and the other associations, we still have a lot of work to do to share more awareness to the companies on these two directives, right?
Yeah. We, for example, now working together with the Italian Chamber of the German Italian Chamber of Commerce in Italy, representing that to us, because we want to make a training for Italian companies, which then also can be transferred to other European companies. And you are completely right. And by the way, we as an association, we are also heavily promoting this. Not even the law is becoming valid. We as a BME have a compliance program since 2008, where we're also highlighting this fair and transparent supply chain issues, because it's definitely, and it's not only about China. The main thing where it's coming out is for the textile industry, also in Bangladesh and in India, for example, because you have to make transparent and have to be aware, and you have to be responsible for your supplier wherever he is located. And but understanding this, and taking the textile company for example, you have a definitely good argument now in the hand to step in new negotiations with potential or old customers, because you have a complete utterly level playing field right now. But if you're not prepared and somebody asking you, and you have this argument not on the table, and say, yes, I have it on the table and I make my homeworks, and then you lose your competitive advantage located as a supplier in Europe. And that's why we're highlighting it as well, because it's definitely an advantage for small and medium-sized, especially small-sized companies in Europe, maybe come back in the game, because there are somewhere on the planet suppliers which cannot follow or will not follow. And then a German company has no argumentation, and there's no question, we have to replace a non-compliant supplier by a compliant supplier.
Totally agree. And again, I thank you so much for rising up this issue, because it's really the importance of really relevant. And we'll keep talking about this, because it's still under implementation. So the national authorities are trying to figure out how to do it. But of course, Germany has a specific dynamic, so to say, with China, for example. Therefore, I think it will hit somehow first the large or the middle stand in Germany, and we are so well interlinked. So it's very important for us to follow what is just said. Thank you for that.
So are there questions out of the audience?
Alguém quer aproveitar a presença dos nossos ilustres convidados para fazer alguma questão?
Maybe I want to ask one question by myself. If I be a Portuguese, so one more. I want to ask myself a question. If I being a Portuguese and I want to go to the German market, which kind of 3 answers I will prepare? I will prepare that I'm an innovative, high qualified company. I will prepare questions that I can serve to every proactive questions you have, to transparency to my own production processes, to my own stocks, to my own deliveries, and that I could be aware that transparency is the major issue currently for German small and medium-sized enterprises. This is not that he wants to be transparent. He wants to reduce his problems. And as more he knows, have information of maybe problems or challenges in your supply chain in advance, as more he and you can ask or can solve the problem. So this is the second question. And the third question is, we already mentioned, I'd be aware about maybe also the things that there are new activities like the supply chain due diligence are becoming into place. But you in Portugal, you are so good in production. You are so good in the way of organizing your own processes. But if, and this, sorry to say that, but this is my experience I have. Sometimes if Portuguese companies step on the German market, they are even more silent than others. Be more loud and proud of what you are reaching by yourself and sell it more proactive. and also sell the good way of making communications to your customers. But because this is definitely an advantage if you see, for example, Southeastern or Eastern European companies, which waiting much too long, arising a problem or a challenge inside the entire supply chain to their customers, and then it's sometimes too late. So this is something where the Portuguese companies are definitely better if you have this advantage and this thing in mind, communicate it, because this makes you much more easier to step into negotiations in B2B activities.
Okay, thank you very much, Olaf, for your wise advices. And eu digo mais uma vez, se alguém pretende fazer alguma questão. So, if nobody wants to make further questions, let me just thank you, Olaf, and thank you, Rui, for your presentations. I think the information was very, very important, and I hope companies can profit from there. This is going to be recorded, so more companies can get this information and be prepared for the future challenge that companies will have in the next years. Okay. Thank you very much.
But nevertheless, I'm happy to support AIMMAP and ICEP anytime you ask me, because beside you are a European country, you know it because I tell it to you so often. Porto is one of my favorite cities. So
you are always invited.
Yes, I know. I can guarantee I will be back. So thank you very much also for the support of ICEP in Berlin, and thank you to you. And then next year maybe we see us again in Berlin.
For sure.
And if you need our support by BME, don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rui.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Bye.